I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm chatting with the CEO of Kickstart Accounting and reformed corporate CFO Danielle Hayden to discuss the 4 different types of money personalities out there and how our money personality impacts the way that we manage our personal and professional finances and the impact it has on our values and goals and how we can line those up to be reflected in the way that we save and spend money. I know talks about money, especially looking at numbers and budgets and all that, can feel very weighty, not fun. But Danielle is so great at simplifying what matters for you based on where you're currently at. And she's helping you release the shame and guilt and fear you might be experiencing around looking at your numbers. She also gives us some much needed tough love in all the right places. So she is sharing about the 4 types of money personalities that she's noticed throughout her career, including the free spender, the saver, the balancer, and the perfectionist, and how to not only identify which of these you lean towards, but she gives you the first or next step depending on where you are in order to help you leverage your money trait and just overall become at least neutral with how you feel about money and at best excited to see your numbers and seeing money as a tool that can help you bring to fruition what's actually important to you. And although Danielle speaks mostly through the lens of business finances and entrepreneurship, there are plenty of great nuggets for personal finances and people who have more traditional W-2 jobs and 1099 contractors as well. How to get organized solo or with a partner. We also talk about being in survival mode with money, where you're just trying to get through the day and pay for the bare necessities, and how looking at your numbers is relevant in those situations, and really just how to feel more empowered versus disempowered if you've been feeling really defeated and kind of hopeless about finances as well. So we're aware that everybody is coming from a different, current financial situation. We also talk about the systems that keep us afraid of money and keep us feeling bad about it, keep us kind of second guessing. I personally have felt a range of the spectrum with, having no money, having decent amount of money, falling somewhere kind of in the middle, like this ebb and flow. So much emotion is wrapped up with how we earn money and our self-worth. And one thing Danielle said is, talks about money are rarely about money. So we also get into the psychology a little bit, the complicated emotions we might be experiencing or avoiding, and how money actually plays a role in that. She also shares some of her favorite tools, a very surprising trend that happens when people actually start looking at their finances from what she's noticed with her clients, and some great advice if you're working on your money stuff with other people. Just a heads up, Danielle and her team are actually the people I work with for my own bookkeeping and have for many years now. I'm not getting paid to have Danielle on the podcast. She's not a sponsor. I just remember how overwhelmed I was with finances as an entrepreneur and, being in the beginning of that. And as a creative, someone who pretty much has zero interest in looking at this kind of stuff. And early on, when I was trying to figure out how, who can help me or what I could DIY, I had some unpleasant experiences with a finance person who just made me feel like I was stupid. I felt like I was not being taken seriously. I felt very dismissed by this person. And as a woman in the entrepreneurial space, unfortunately, this is a very common occurrence when you step into the money conversation. And so when I met with Danielle and her team, and who I believe they're all women or a team of mostly women over there, I just felt like it was a breath of fresh air. I wasn't expected to be an expert in finance, something I had never studied before. I was taken seriously. My goals were taken seriously. And so if you have had a shitty experience with trying to get help with your finances, I hope that it doesn't deter you from continuing to look for the right people for you. I know that when it comes to money, it can be a sensitive topic and a little nerve-wracking for people to be able to look at your stuff, and having a trusted referral is very important. So if you don't feel like you have one amongst your friends or your family or, coworkers or community otherwise, feel free to reach out to Kickstart for a conversation and see how that feels. Like, I'm happy to be that friend that can refer you somewhere to people that I've been using for many years. And again, I'm not getting paid to say any of this shit. So anyway, here is my chat with Danielle. When I hear the word budget, I feel two things at once. I feel like, oh, this is going to be tedious, but also fun because I like gamifying things. So it's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like, getting over the hump of actually getting things set up and then, enjoying it because it can help you reach goals and stuff. So why don't we start with just why is building a budget important in the first place? And is it important for everyone, or should some people just forgo this whole budget thing altogether?
So I think everyone should have some type of budget in
Yeah.
place. Now, it really depends on what type of person you are. So I find that people fall into like one of four kind of money personality types.
Oh,
Our perfectionist type loves to know where every single dollar is coming in, where every single dollar is going out. My perfectionists actually love budgeting because they can see what just happened and they can make a plan for every dollar moving forward,
oh, interesting. Okay. That's
right?
not me.
Not me. It's not me either.
Okay.
To be clear, it's not me.
Good for them.
Yeah. Then we have our free spenders. Our free spenders love to spend money. And usually free spenders will spend money before looking at their budget, before they
Okay.
look at their financials. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a W 2 employee, our free spenders do not look to see if they can spend money before they're spending money. They want it, they buy it.
Okay.
And for our free spenders, it's really difficult to budget because it feels like you're constantly failing. And so
Mm,
it's really hard to set a budget as a free spender. Now, I do have a strategy for our free spenders, but I understand how difficult it is for somebody in that situation to be able to set a budget.
right.
Now, our savers are type three. The
Okay.
savers never feel like it's enough money. So, often I'll talk to a business owner who's a saver and I'll say, so what are you saving for? And they'll say,
Right.
well, I'm investing everything back into my business. And I'm like, no, 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 no. What are you using the money? What are you going to use it for? Like, well, I'm investing back in my business. I'm like,
Right.
no, the money is sitting in the savings account.
Right.
That's not invested anywhere.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's that feeling that no matter how much I save, it's not going to be enough. And so when I spend money, it feels really difficult for our savers to actually spend money. And so budgeting,
Mm,
again, can be very difficult for somebody who is a saver because they want to budget a lot of money into savings and investments, and not as much money in actually spending to grow your business
mm,
and to actually thrive. So that's our saver. Last
right.
one is our balance seeker. And the balance seeker is somebody who needs to have, like, they want to have a good understanding of where their money's coming in, where their money is going. They understand that they need to spend in order to grow their business, in order to have investments, in order to thrive.
Right.
But they also want to have enough money in savings to be able to weather bad times and understand that that's a possibility for a life.
Right.
Um, and so, yes, we need to have some type of budget in place, no matter what our personality type is.
Interesting. By the way, are you gonna be writing a book? Because I feel like this needs to be a book about the 4 types of money people, or what you call 'em, money personalities?
Money personality
I
types.
love it. I definitely identify with number 4, but I also feel like I can go back and forth between being a spender and a saver. I feel
Okay.
like, if I go through a spending phase, then I kind of like retreat, like, okay, I cannot spend anything for the next couple months to kind of recuperate. But I do have this baseline of I would, a decent balance of spending and saving, I would say. So let's say that somebody is starting from scratch with building a budget or just the very, very beginning steps. What are some tools or kind of mindset shifts that you have seen work for people to just get over the hump of starting if they feel really overwhelmed with this whole concept?
So, burying our head in the sand is never going to help us improve, right? Like
Right.
avoiding the topic, no matter what, you still have to pay your taxes at the end of the year.
Right.
You still need to be able to manage money to afford your life, right? Both business and personal.
Yeah.
We need to exist in the world. And money is a part of that. It's not going away for anyone. Like literally, there's not a person in the world, I don't care what you do for a living, there's not a person in the world that doesn't have to deal with money in some way in accordance to their life. It's kind of like a hard truth for people that you have a responsibility. I actually don't care if you don't feel that you're good with money. And I know
Yeah.
I kind of sound a little crude when I say that, but nobody cares. The IRS doesn't care.
Yeah.
Your landlord doesn't care. The bank doesn't care. The loan provider doesn't care. Your vendors. We have a personal responsibility to understand our numbers, even if it's in the most basic way. Right. So that is a huge mindset shift because when we can shift our mindset into avoidance isn't an option, I have to take personal responsibility for my own finances and for my business's finances and doing it. And even
Right.
if it's messy and funky and doesn't feel good, like you're showing up anyway. And then we find a really great money team who can help us along the way. I'm not saying you have to be the one to do everything, but
Right.
you have to be able to say, "Hey, I have to take personal responsibility for my finances." So that's the biggest mindset shift.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You need a little tough love in this area because like you said, nobody really gives a shit if you don't want to do it. It's still going to happen. And if you can just figure it out and set it up, it will be very beneficial. Do you feel like automation is a good way to help people budget who maybe want to just try to set things up one time and then make adjustments as they go, or anything else that you want to share about that?
So, the first step when we're thinking about budgeting is to look backwards, to look forward. We need to know where we've been to know where we're going. So, you can't say, I really want to cut back on eating out when you have no idea how much you've been spending on eating out. Like, what are you
Yeah.
going to cut back from? How much I'm spending in marketing activities. Well, how much are you spending today? I really want to pay myself more. Well, how much are you paying yourself today? So we have to know where we just were to decide where we're going. So it's really like step one. And so yes, we can use automation, but there's no tool out there right now to help us decide, does this align with my core values?
Right.
With who I am. As I said that, I'm like, I guess could I put my core values in ChatGPT and approach? I
Yeah,
mean,
there
maybe.
probably is some AIs around the corner that will do this for you. Be
I
your
mean,
money
maybe,
therapist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your goal is, and I'm speaking specifically to entrepreneurs here, if your goal is like, I really want to grow my business. When you're looking at your finances, if you are not spending money in advertising, marketing, referral partners, client gifts, if you're not doing the activities and spending money in the areas that align with your goals and
Right.
your intentionality, then you're not going to hit your goals, right? So you're not spending in alignment with who you want to be. If you want to be the kind of person who sends flowers when you hear of somebody being ill or losing a loved one, but your gift expense doesn't exist,
Mm,
you're not really actually the kind of person who does that, right?
right.
So maybe your goal is to leave a legacy and you want to hire people or you want to give back through charitable contributions. You want to give back to your community. Well, when I look at how you're spending money, I should be able to see, oh, they're hiring people in their community. I can see the charitable contributions line here. Wow, this person really likes to give back to their community. So I can see what's important to you by just looking at your income statement, and it might be your personal income statement or your business income statement. We
Right.
we do personal bookkeeping as well. And so when our clients can see, all right, my personal income statement, will show me what's important to me in my life.
Absolutely. And I have so many questions about that, money, the relationship between money and values, and also just overcoming the fear and guilt of looking at your numbers. But before we get into that, what about the person tuning in who's like, Budget? I mean, I'm just trying to survive the day. Like I'm in debt. The cost of living is crazy. I can't even talk about a budget right now because I'm in survival mode, having to decide between can I pay rent this month? Can I eat, more than a can of beans for dinner? What about that person? Does this conversation make sense for them or not?
Yeah, because when you're making that decision, you still need to know where all the other places that you're spending money. We had a client last year. We were doing her business bookkeeping and her personal bookkeeping. She had so much debt. We did what we call a catch up. And so we brought in all of her old transactions for the prior year. 'Cause we're like, we need to see what you've been doing to really decide what's going to move the needle here. We got a hold of those transactions. And let me tell you how often she was door dashing. We also found in her subscriptions that she was paying for subscriptions that she had long stopped using. And I'm using that as an example. And so maybe your situation is more serious than that. But
Yeah.
where are those small areas, like little small leaks? $10 here, $12 there, $15 there. Well, that's a nice solid meal or a payment to my debt provider. So knowing where you've been spending money to look at, here's how much I'm spending in rent. Here's how much money I'm spending in meals. Here's how much I'm spending in each category so that you can start to make those shifts. We should only really be allocating around 10 to 15% of our total income to living to our facility costs. And I use the
Mm,
word facility because that's both in business and in your personal life. Now, if you're living somewhere that has a very high cost of living, and you're spending significantly more than that, then
yeah.
there's a huge trade-off,
Right.
and we need to
Right.
be ready for that trade-off. So maybe if where you're living has a high cost of living, we have to trade down our car. We need to trade the way that we're living and showing up in our lives so that we can live in that home, or we need to adjust our actual facility costs so that we can live the lifestyle that we want to live.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of it is asking, what are you willing to do or let go of that maybe isn't as important to you? Like I remember just being at a point in my career where I really wanted to start a business. I wanted to be my own boss, all of that. And I had to think about, okay, if I need to, instead of rent a room in Los Angeles, I have to like rent a couch somewhere instead for a while to lower my expenses in order to pay for some things. Am I willing to do that? And it was a yes because I just had to get out of the feeling that I had of being in like that 9 to 5 day job situation where, I talk to friends and they'd be like, I would not do that at all. I like coming home to a comfortable place. I don't mind my job, right? Everybody is different when you get really honest about what you want and what you don't want and what you might be spending money on just because. How can people start to get over the potential fear or guilt they may have when they actually start looking at their numbers? What kind of stuff do you share with people who are experiencing that?
It's a point of reflection. There is no
Yeah.
shame in this. We
Yeah.
are so programmed. Like, I don't think we realize how programmed we are. We got a report card every quarter our entire lives telling us
Yeah.
if we passed or failed. And then if you're anything like my parents, if you didn't do good enough, you got grounded. Way to like create more shame around who we are. Okay.
Mm,
Then you scroll Instagram or any TV show. It is great marketing. Like, think about the marketing of Amazon. They have normalized it to get a package every day. Now you just normalize that overspending. How about Target with Starbucks in the corner and how normal it is to go get Starbucks and walk Target and overspend in Target? How do we feel? Like, really, actually, how does your internal compass feel when you spend money? And there's no right or wrong to that. I just want you to reflect on how you feel and the reasons behind those purchases. So if you are door dashing every day, why? If you are in debt, but you love to spend money and have the nicest, newest things and the top tier software, you like to have employees on staff who aren't fully at the capacity. What what is that doing for you? Like, it's doing something. Why are you doing that? And let's find another way to soothe, comfort, to identify as a different type of person who shows up in the world differently.
Right. What am I gaining from it? Maybe convenience,
Yeah, what am I
maybe
gaining
whatever,
from it?
or comfort, but also what am I losing from it? Maybe you've been wanting to spend money, I don't know, on a trip with your family or something, whatever it is. What is it costing me? Not even just like beyond the money.
But are you
Ask,
subconsciously avoiding the trip?
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm like,
Yeah.
really reflect on it because it's not the DoorDash purchase. And you could say, but here's the thing that you could have gotten, right? You could have had the vacation with your family. But like, do you not want to be on vacation with your family? Right?
Interesting. Yes. Yes.
And so if I'm overspending on DoorDash, then when I go talk to my husband, like, oh, sorry, honey, I really can't afford that vacation.
Mm,
But like, what's really the root discomfort that you're actually avoiding, or what is it providing to you? Like, there's something that we get when we buy something. Like, what are you getting, or what are you truly actually avoiding from that purchase?
right. It reminds me of that whole concept of the 7 layers of why. You keep asking
Yeah.
why, like at least 7 times to actually get to the root, because you might just say, "Oh, I don't have the money because I spent on DoorDash." "Why are you spending on that?" "Oh, because it's convenient and it's comforting." "Why is it comforting?" "Oh, I don't know, because food comforts me." And you just keep going, "Why does it
Mhm.
comfort you? Where does it come from?" So I love that concept of one why might not be enough. You gotta
This
do
is
some
no,
serious
it's not
digging.
enough. Yeah.
You gotta do some serious digging, and I'm wondering how you feel about, let's say that somebody's in a situation like that, and maybe, like, what a simple swap might be helpful. Instead of DoorDash every night, it's ordering a meal delivery service that that you can pop in the microwave, and maybe it cuts your expenses in half, but you still get that same feeling of convenience, a delicious meal that you didn't have to cook, it's simple, right? Like, can we start making these simple swaps? Because I think people get into this all or nothing mindset of, okay, I can't be a DoorDash person every day. So now I got to cook every single meal for the rest of my life. And then of course, you don't stick with that because you have to like become this new person that you're just not. So, how do you help people kind of with those small steps for the bigger impact or result that they're looking for?
When we work with our clients in building out a budget, especially our CFO level clients, we're looking at planning every dollar, where it's coming in from and where it's going out. But we got to take another step back and say, all right, where do I want to see myself go in 10 years? Like, where do I want to be? Where do I want my business to be in 10 years? I got to visualize that. Now, 3 years. 10 years is really far, but
Yeah.
3 years. Like, where do I want to be in 3 years? And some simple ways to do this. My executive team and I, we just talked about like, how old will we be? How old will our kids be? Like just like softer things. So it's not like, oh, what does my whole dream life look like? But just like tactically, like my son in 3 years, my son will be 18. Well, how do I want to visualize my life with as a mother of an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
And who do I want to be? I'm going to keep using Cam as my example. So when we did our 1 year budget for 2025 for Kickstart, I started to think about who am I going to be in 3 years? Well, I want when Cameron leaves, I want him to remember that I drove him to school every day and that like
Mhm.
8 times out of 10, I'm the one to pick him up after school. That's my priority, right? So
Yeah.
my core values right now is he's my baby of the house. I have a very limited amount of time with him. So now when I go to build my budget, I need to make sure that I have enough team members because I can't put the whole weight of my business on my shoulders anymore because if
Right.
I'm doing that then I can't show up to be the mother that I want to be. And so it's really important for me to allocate dollars to building out that team. It's really important for me when I'm thinking about um, marketing. Like I used to go to conferences, I used to be the one at networking events, I used to be the one doing all of those things. I actually don't want to travel like at all anymore. So either we have to have the cost or the dollars allocated in there, or we need to have a different marketing plan because I'm not getting on a plane this year. So like I'm mapping out the spending because with all that being said about my son and the role I want to play there, the goal of the business is to still grow this year. And so we need to map our spending so that the business is still growing, but it aligns with who I want to be as an individual person.
I love how creating this a budget really forces you to get really clear on your priorities and then reflect that in the way that you're kind of mapping out your money. Like it was so easy for me to look at, my budget with Cam, my husband. Cam's your son, Cam's my husband, and say, I really don't care about getting my hair done anymore or getting my nails done. I did that for
Yeah.
several years, but I'm like, I don't really need that or want that. I actually don't really enjoy it that much anymore. So this is a chunk of money that I'm no longer going to be spending. And this actually allows me to work less throughout the year. I love that. I would rather have the spaciousness in my schedule than getting my nails done and my hair done and whatever else I was spending that just didn't really mean that much to me. It was just kind of normalized for me. And so I think it's just like really being honest with what you're doing because you want to be doing and what you're maybe doing because I don't know, there's some external pressure or, things like that. I'm curious to know if there's a specific example maybe with a client that you've helped that realized they were spending money in an area because of maybe other people's like opinions or ideas of what success was and then maybe pivoted to reflect what they actually cared about.
I want listeners to know, like, it is so common for that to happen.
Yeah.
So we had one client who, I I remember on a call, this was a few years ago. She's a wedding planner in New York, and she found out that she was pregnant, and she was trying to figure out what she was gonna do after the baby was born. Her husband actually hated his job, and um, but he needed the health insurance of from that company, and we started talking about what the plan was like over the next 12 24 months between his role in the family, what her role was going to be. And she started to say to me, Danielle, I just don't feel like I'm a I'm doing enough as a wedding planner. Like there's this other woman. I was like, oh,
Oh, the comparison trap.
there's another woman, and she's in town here, and she started her business at the same time that I did. And I can see on Instagram the events that she's doing. And she's like, Danielle, they're incredible events. And she's got all these team members working for her. She's got this huge team, and I'm just over here, me, and I'm not doing enough events, and I'm not big enough, and my Instagram isn't enough, and
Mm,
I don't have the fanciest software for my clients. I'm not using that planning tool. And finally, I'm like, whoa, hold on, time out. And what I learned even from just in my experience from working with clients, what you see on the outside is not what's going on in the inside.
right. Not the full story. Yeah.
Not the full story.
Yeah.
And so this poor woman, while she's pregnant, trying to decide on what her role is going to be in the business, terrified to hire somebody or to let her husband come and work in the business because she wasn't sure because her business wasn't enough.
Mm,
Because she was comparing herself to somebody else instead of designing the business that she wanted to live. I was like, "Do you want to do events like that?" And she gave me a whole spiel about why she's not interested in doing big events because they aren't actually very profitable. They need a ton of team members. She really doesn't have the team for it. She doesn't want to build out that type of team because then she'd have to be doing a lot of these events. She really doesn't it doesn't fill up her cup at all.
right.
But then why are we're comparing something that you don't even want? You don't even enjoy being an event planner with those types of events.
Yeah.
Let's build a business that you want to. And that's like one of many examples. Everybody else in my industry is going to XYZ conference or working with XYZ coach, or they have this latest tool. It's so expensive, but I have to have it because everybody else is using it. But really, when you get into the tool, it doesn't actually have all the functionalities that I need. I actually now need two tools because it doesn't actually do everything that I thought that the tool did. And because I cater to my clients differently than the rest of my industry, I actually can't use the tool in the same way that my peers can. And so this really expensive software is now like pretty much actually useless to me. And I need three other tools to actually do what I need to do. But I was more concerned about what everybody else in the industry was doing and not what about I needed in my company.
Mm. It's just that narrative, whether it's in business or personal, like you said, it's normalized to overspend, and that's the messaging that we get is that bigger is always better, growth at all costs. And when you actually, break down what you want, it might look less shiny than you think it should. It might be more simple. It might not be as sexy as maybe somebody else's stuff on Instagram. It reminds me of I had worked with a client who had $1 million business. They'd bring in over $1 million a year, but they took home about $100,000, something like that. And they were stressed all the time. They had a huge team. They had overhead because it was a brick and mortar type of business, working 24/7. And at the time, I was making the same amount that they were working like 30 hours a week. I can't like be on panels saying, "Oh, I have $1 million business," but where our take home is the same, and we had wildly different schedules and stress levels and all of that. And maybe I didn't feel like, "Oh, I don't have a big business. I can't say that to people," but the reality behind the scenes, that was a huge moment for me of like, wow, you can't really just judge a book by
Yeah.
its cover. And there's a way to there's more than one way to reach a goal. I think that was a big lesson for me is like, hey, if you want to make six figures, there's more than one way to do it. It doesn't have to be this big shiny thing. It could be a little bit more subtle. And it doesn't mean that one is better or the other. It's just kind of based on, your personality. I would love to know what you share with people who, specifically the saver personality, of maybe the fear of there's never enough money, I'll never have enough, therefore I'm not spending on things. And I think we've all heard the stories of like, I don't know, the older person who is has maybe a couple $1 million in the bank or whatever, something like that, but they refuse to spend on their health care or something like that as they age because they're saving their money for a rainy day kind of a thing, right? How do you try to get through to people that it's okay to spend?
I try to help our clients understand what is healthy spending,
Mm.
and what is a healthy amount that we need to have saved. So I believe that we should all have three checking accounts. One is our
Oh,
operating account, money in, money out. That's how we're conducting our lives. Second account is a savings account that is for taxes. So especially for entrepreneurs, as your business grows, you are going to pay more in taxes. We need to have money saved for our taxes throughout the year. Account number three is our rainy day fund. And there you could have anywhere from 1 to 6 months worth of expenses. So, personally, this would be all of your personal expenses. So, taking an average of how much you spend every month, you need to have 1 to 6 months worth of that. If you're a business owner, it would be on average, what's 1 month worth of your business's expenses, and you could have 1 to 6 months worth of that. Now, I'm giving you a giant range.
mm,
I really believe that as your business grows, it's more like 1 to 2 months because it is really hard if you are running a business that has $100,000 of operating expenses every month.
yeah,
It's not really going to make sense to have $600,000 sitting in a savings account. Doesn't make sense. Terrible use of cash at this point.
yeah,
So as your business grows or as your financial situation changes, you're going to have less money in a traditional savings account. Now, personally, I also don't want you to have 6 months worth of your living expenses in just a savings account, especially if your monthly expenses are high, because you could have 3 months in an investment account growing with a financial advisor in investments. So if your risk tolerance is very low, like you have very low risk tolerance, you're
yeah,
going to have more to that 3 to 6 month range because you want to know I can go get that money at any time.
right.
I can go to the bank right now, withdraw my cash. It's liquid, it's available. It is costing you money because you're not going to have that money invested. It's probably paying less money in interest. If you're somebody who is more comfortable with risk, you're
Yeah,
going to have closer to that 1 to 3 month mark because you want to put your money in investments, maybe buy a real estate property, maybe invest in the stock market, maybe invest back into your business, create a side hustle. And so for you, you want your money available to keep spending to generate income for you in other ways. And so for you, you might only want 1 to 3 months worth of expenses saved.
Gotcha. I like this idea of having a budget also gives you permission to spend money in certain areas where if you don't really know what each category of your budget is doing, you might, go out to dinner with somebody and feel anxious the whole time thinking I shouldn't be spending money on this. But with a budget, you might know that you have $150 that you could spend that month, in that category and really start enjoying the spending of your money. I would love to hear some of the tips that you have for the four different money personalities, maybe when it comes to budgeting or starting one. I'd imagine they'd be a little bit different just because of the mindset each of them have. What's like a good starting point? Yeah, anything that you want to share about that for each type.
Okay, so for our savers, because we were just talking about you, for
Yeah,
our savers, I want you to look at what you have saved today. Do you have closer to 6 months, 1 year? Like, how many months worth of expenses do you have saved currently?
right.
And then I want you to reflect on why. Like, if you have a year's worth of operating expenses or living expenses saved up, truly, why? And is there a better use for some of those funds? Doesn't have to be all of them,
Yeah.
but some of them. Like, what are you truly actually waiting for? And I
Mhm.
say that again, no shame. We've lived through a lot. And then let's decide for an action item, like the amount over 6 months, like let's do something with it. We can invest in the stock market. We can do something, a high yield savings account. Let's do something with those extra dollars now that we've reflected on why. For our free spender, I want you to give yourself a budget for free spending. So when I create a budget for a client, when we go through, so we'll go through each income statement line and we'll say, all right, here's how much on average you've been spending, and here's how much money you're going to spend in the future. So if you've been spending on average $350 a month on business meals, and I'm not going to tell you, like, well, you should really stop that. That's going to be a huge change. So I'm going to say, well, on average, you spent 350. So let's give you an allocation of 350 per month moving forward so that we know how much we need to bring in income to live our lifestyle. Same
Right.
thing with how much we want to pay yourself. If you have a home that you want to live in, how much does it cost you to live there? Like, what are all of those expenses? Now, let's put that in the budget so we know how much money we need to bring in order to live that type of lifestyle. So for us, you gotta give the free spenders. It's funny. I'm a free spender in business and I'm a saver in my personal life.
Interesting.
I got to give myself in business some room to, like, I am going to go to a conference or I'm going to want to go to a conference. I'm going to want to buy a new software. I'm going to want to impromptu expand my team. Like, I'm a crazy visionary with new ideas all the time. And I need space in my budget to be able to allow me to do that. So perfectionist, I do want you to like really map out your budget by month, and by each spending category. But I actually want you to do this with a member of your money team. And so maybe it's your financial advisor, maybe it's your bookkeeper, maybe it's your CFO, whoever you have as part of your money team. I want you to do it with them because you need somebody to pull you back out. You're going to go in and plan out every dollar you think you're going to spend next December on Christmas presents. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
and we don't need to do that. We need to come up and we need to be at a higher level. And so do that with your money team so that they can help pull you out when you're driving yourself crazy. Our balance seeker, um, you're somewhere in the middle. Again,
Right.
like depending on where you lean, like I probably could be a balance seeker, right? Because I have the two tendencies, but we all kind of lean in one direction or another. And
Right.
so our balance seeker, like you need to lay out a full budget because you need to be able to see, I know that I need to spend money in order to hit my goals, right? I know I need to do that. But if you don't think through what that actually means, you're gonna wake up 12 months from now and be like, oh, I should have hired that person, or I should have invested in that. And so for our balance seeker, it's really important that we take that time to plan, give yourself some opportunity to spend money, to have those free spending, make sure that we have enough money in our savings account and our rainy day fund, and find that money team that's going to help support you so that you are staying at this right level.
Gotcha. Why do you think that is that you're so different in personal versus business
I
life?
don't know. I guess I watched my parents go through a hard time. I think I was grade school. My dad was let go from his position, um, and I watched how much that affected my mom. And
Mm,
they didn't like they were they were and they are they love vacationing and traveling, and that's their core value.
yeah.
And like I saw the toll that it had on her emotionally, and I think I've always felt like I didn't wanna be in that position. Yeah, let's travel, but let's travel once we know that everything else is taken care of.
Right,
You know?
right. Well, yeah, it's just another reminder that, money isn't just money. There's so much psychology and
Oh,
emotion wrapped up into money. I know you could speak all day to that. Let's talk about maybe some of the tools that people need to start a budget. I mean, are we talking like whip out a spreadsheet here or QuickBooks
yeah.
or some kind of app? And maybe a difference between somebody who either has a money team or somebody who doesn't. For whatever reason, they don't have somebody helping them or they don't need somebody helping them for whatever reason. Maybe we can give people both or maybe what it would be like to have a combination, anything that comes to mind for tools.
Yeah, we didn't plan this at all, but I'm gonna give everybody a download. I am gonna
Great.
tell you to use Excel. So if you go to kickstartaccounting.com/budget, I'll make sure our template is available for everyone to download.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And anybody can use that. It is structured like an income statement, and anybody can use that to map out your spending. Our tools that we need in order to create a budget. If you are a business owner, freelancer, 1099, we recommend QuickBooks Online. It is still like the best software out there for
Yeah.
anybody in business. So I want you to have QuickBooks Online. I want you to know where you've been spending money for the last 12 months. That way you can run your income statement by month for the last 12 months and use that as a tool to plan for the future. I actually would advise people not to use the automation.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
we've seen QuickBooks map things to the wrong category,
Oh,
and expenses end up on the balance sheet. Owner's pay ends up on the income statement. Again, I'm specifically talking to a business owner,
right.
1099, contractor. I really want you to have a money team. So it is important. The same personal responsibility I was talking about before, you need to have a money team because you're not a bookkeeper and you don't know how to do bookkeeping. It's
Yeah.
okay. I don't know how to do what you do. I don't want you to pull inaccurate information and try to budget off of that. But if you're already working with a bookkeeper, you can ask them for your income statement by month and then be able to budget from there using this Excel tool that everyone can go download.
Okay. And let's
Okay.
say somebody's maybe doing something manually because they need to see where they've been spending money. How far back do you suggest that they go? Like a month, 3 months, 6 months to
I
kind
would
of
do a
get a.
minimum of 3.
Okay, great.
Okay. 3 months. If you're doing it manually, I know that that's hard and time consuming. I would go 3 because I want you to get an average. Like last month, who knows what happened? Like I watch in my like I'm so up and down because like what if you were on vacation last month or the month before you had a death in the family and so you went out to eat
Right.
every day that month. And so I want you to have some averages to play with.
What about somebody who has a more conventional job?
There are some really awesome tools. Mint was bought out by if you go to mint.com, it'll take you to the
Yeah.
new vendor.
Okay.
But there are some really amazing tools out there now that you can sync your credit cards, your checking account to. I was a Mint user forever and ever because it really easily showed you where you were spending money and allowed you to create budgets in there. There's another one called Rocket. Their whole premise is to help you cut back on subscription costs. So you can check out one like Rocket, but for personal spending, I love a tool like Mint or Rocket that's going to help you get organized. It'll tell you where you're spending money and then help you build out those budgets.
Amazing. And if it wasn't clear our listeners, Danielle and her company are part of my money team. So if that's helpful, I don't know if I'm publicly allowed to endorse you, but
Oh, yeah.
okay, fabulous. Because I know I'm not publicly allowed to endorse my financial advisor. So I've had to hint
Yes.
at it with
Yes.
some winks.
Two different licensures.
Two
Yes.
very different. But hey, look, if you're like, I don't even know where to start with a referral for somebody to help me, take my referral. And Danielle's team has been so helpful. You know, I was such an absolute mess with finances, and just having people in your corner who can talk you through tough transitions and explain things to you in a way that you can understand is a game changer. So you definitely don't have to do it alone. I would say even if you don't have a business, you don't have to do it alone. If you're like,
You
this is
don't.
way too overwhelming. I have more of a personal question for you.
Okay.
The last time we chatted, we talked about how you had stopped drinking alcohol a few years back, I believe. I'm a newly non-drinker myself, but I don't have the data around how this is maybe impacting my budget. So I would love to know, have you noticed if not drinking alcohol has impacted your budget in a significant way or not? Or do you find yourself spending that money that you save on other things now?
Yeah, it's interesting. My husband and I were on a trip back in January, and we did find ourselves saying, like, I don't know, a handful of times that like we were buying the extra thing, whether it be like the sweatshirt or we were choosing a nicer restaurant or something, because
Yeah.
overall in the trip, we probably saved hundreds of dollars. And so
Yeah.
we found ourselves saying that a few times. But
Right.
honestly, if I had to compare the two of how much I said that and spent a few extra dollars compared to, the actual spending of a glass of wine at every single dinner,
Right.
probably, probably two glasses of wine at every single dinner,
Right.
plus, a different kind of breakfast that I would have ate because I would want a different kind of breakfast after a night of drinking.
Yes.
And so it
Yes.
is a very different impact of I think that absolutely we as a family are saving money. And then I think as a company, the types of events that we engage in and dinners that we go to are different. I know that the first time
Oh,
my team came in, we did like a wine event, which is a very different outing than like I think this last time we did Top Golf, which there's still
right.
alcohol there, but it's a very different type of event, and I think overall saving a ton of money, and I think just living a higher quality of life.
Oh, yeah, that's so interesting how you're noticing it impact other areas of your life that maybe you didn't expect right away, like the different events or things like that.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. I like when I drank, I minimum 2 glasses of something over a dinner, and then drinking alcohol naturally made me hungrier or maybe like
of
numbed my
course.
my hunger cue. So I would overeat, which I would spend money, and then I would
We'll
probably stay out later.
order too. Yeah,
Yes,
well,
yes, all the
yeah.
things. And I'm like, gosh, I can't wait to see how much money I'm saving, at the end of every year, just for that simple swap. And even if I get a mocktail over dinner, it's like usually half the cost at least, of an alcoholic drink. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'm excited to see what happens.
Even the types of vacations you go on. Like, we did
Oh
a hiking
yeah.
trip instead of an all-inclusive, like, even the types of things that you do.
Oh gosh, that's such a good point. Because yeah, if I was drinking alcohol, it would make sense for me to spend money in a way where I could drink as much as possible, potentially for as
Exactly.
cheap as possible. I'd be spending money on something I'm not using if I did something kind of all inclusive. So how can I spend money in a way that makes sense for the value that I get back? So I will update everybody on that
Yeah,
thing.
we'll check back.
Yeah, we'll check back. As far as the budget, or maybe this is on the sheet that you're gifting everybody. What about it, like different ways to budget, whether you're maybe single versus you have dependents? Any of those types of things that people should consider, or is it all kind of the same thing?
It's really all the same thing.
Yeah,
I think that if you have dependents, the amount of money you need is going to be different. Your core values and what you prioritize are going to be different.
right,
But overall, the actual structure of the budget doesn't really matter unless you have, a child coming up for college. And did you save for that? What do you want your role in that situation to be? And can you afford to help contribute to that? Like, that will be different if you have dependents, but
right.
the actual exercise will be the same.
Gotcha. And do you have any just hot tips for maybe making this organizational part of the budget more fun? Like the very first step of like looking at everything. I don't know if you've shared anything that has helped people just make it like gamify it in a way.
So I like to do something that I enjoy with it. So for me,
Okay.
I love coffee and I'm like a huge dessert person. So like going to get a cup of coffee, sitting at like a nice coffee shop,
Mm,
getting a nice cookie or like something while I'm there. Like for me, that makes it feel like an event. I have a reward. Maybe even my dopamine sensors are like tying like, oh, see, it
this
wasn't
is
that bad
fun. Right.
because like
We
the
get a
sugar got
treat when we do this.
yeah. So whatever that might look like for you of like choose your thing that might give you like a dopamine or don't go spend a ton of money because
Right.
it's not like
Yeah,
that
yes.
might be counterintuitive. If it's in your budget, you can spend whatever you want. But I think doing that helps kind of like lower, like let's just like lowering the threshold around it, and
Right.
then and then easing the conversation around it. Focus on the good things, like what's happened that's really good. We tend to focus on what didn't work and where we
Right.
failed. Well, what maybe you invested $10,000 this year into your retirement and the year before you invested 0. So maybe you didn't max out your contribution at $20,000, but you got 10. And that's a huge improvement. And let's celebrate that. So whether it be with your money team or your spouse or your tax account, make sure you have someone to celebrate with, or that when you're looking at that information, you're taking a moment to actually celebrate.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Those are such great tips. I know I'm thinking of like, what would I do with Cam to try to like make this more fun for us? Maybe splitting up some of the information that we have to find and like seeing who can do it faster.
I
Competition.
like that.
Or like thinking about the things that you're excited to reward yourself with. Like, oh, when we hit this in our savings, we're gonna go do this thing. Like just trying to get excited about it or actually enjoy the
Yeah.
process. Okay, so this question is more about our societal norms. Do you think that education around finances is purposely not kind of normalized for us because the population that's kind of left in the dark about money is a population that overspends? And how do you feel about just the system that we are in?
I know that for me growing up, my mother always said, like, Danielle, you don't talk about religion, politics, and money.
Mm.
I mean, to her surprise, I now like am online literally actually talking about money.
Yes. Whoops.
um, yeah, sorry, mom. But that's the programming that I received. And I'm sure she received that programming from her parents and that these religion, politics, and money were like taboo topics that we kept private. So I don't know. And then you add being a woman on top of it. It's amazing when you look back in history, like it's pretty recent that we were able to do all the things that we are able to do today.
Right.
When my daughter gets upset, I say, you're a college educated, you have access to college. You are a woman who is able to learn and establish yourself a retirement account, and checking account, and credit card, and own land, and all these really amazing things. And so when I look back on history, I'm just so amazed about how recent in time that it was that we were not able to do that. That contributes to who we
Absolutely.
are with our money today.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know if you've noticed any patterns with clients or anybody else that you've helped that there maybe is similar things that they start to spend less on when they actually focus on their budget. Like, have you noticed a trend with, oh, people often cut their subscriptions or they cut this, or is it just very, very different across the board? Or have you noticed like one or two things seem to be a big pattern that somebody might be able to consider?
So I actually think it's the opposite. So I think
Oh,
that when people, so especially entrepreneurs, but people think I'm overspending everywhere. I have to cut back on my spending. Like I got to get it together. And so clients will often get on the call and they're like all like shoulders up, brace for it, like, okay, tell me where I got to cut back. And I'm like,
right.
man, this is why nobody wants to talk to us. Like, you don't need to come back anywhere.
Right.
Like there's a healthy amount of spending. Like when I think about a business that's growing, a growing business needs to have 8 to 10% of their sales being spent on advertising and marketing.
Mm,
If you want to have a healthy, sustainable business, you can't do everything. So you need to have people who are working with you. And so
right.
we need to have 30 to 50% of our sales back in payroll. You can't send out manually every client proposal and invoice, and we need systems and we need tools. So between 5 and 10% of our sales should be in operations costs and subscriptions. And so I actually find that people didn't hire the VA. They didn't hire the operations person. They didn't go get help. They didn't work with the tax accountant they wanted to work with because they were thinking, I can't afford it. And once they finally see their income statement, they're like, oh, hold on. Shoot, I really should have hired 6 months ago. A client, she was like, holy shit, I'm actually a business owner. She's like, this thing's real. This works.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not, I am like actually doing this. And it was like this whole mindset shift because she had never seen her financials before. She's like, you're telling me that this business actually generates a profit. Totally changed how she thought of her business. I mean, now she's been a client for over 5 years. We've watched her cycle through buying a home, hiring employees, adding herself to payroll, becoming an S corp. She invests in her retirement today. Like all because she looked at her numbers and she's like, holy crap, like I should really be investing in this thing because it actually works.
That's such a great part that we often don't think about or hear about is I think there's this expectation or anticipation that if we look at our numbers, it's going to be negative. It's going to be a negative feeling all around. Like you said,
Yeah.
we're going to have to think, oh, we got to spend less, or this is I'm sucking at this. But oh my gosh, if you look at your numbers, you could also get an instant confidence boost and actually be told that you can actually spend more money in this area and it would actually be beneficial for you. And that's something to keep in mind too, that we're assuming that maybe depending on how you feel about money, it's going to be a negative outcome or not feel very good, but it could also feel really good and be a catalyst for growth that you're not expecting. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's so interesting that the trend that you're noticing is actually people could be spending more in certain areas
Yeah.
versus, yeah, they need to be cutting this always. How can partners budget together if they really want to keep separate bank accounts? Let's just say that they don't really want a joint account for whatever reason. How can you be a teammate with somebody and also have that separation that you might want or need?
There might be parts of it that you're doing together or
Mm.
it's clear responsibility. So, maybe you pay the mortgage and your spouse pays all of the utilities and it's clear that who pays what, clear responsibility and expectation. A lot of time when we get mad at each other, I think in really any relationship, it could be with your spouse, it could be at work, it could be anywhere, it's
Yeah.
over unmet expectations. And the reflection moment is, was I even clear about what my expectations were? Did we know who was doing what? I mean, I see it in my husband. He wants to be the one to pay for dinner just because that's old school. Like he wants to be able to be the one carrying and providing. And
Right.
so, does your spouse need to be the one that's paying for every dinner? A
Mm.
lot of times he'll pay for the dinner and then I'll literally pull out my phone and I'll cash app him up. But that's something that we've discussed,
Right.
and I know that that makes him feel good to be able to do that,
Right.
and I know what I want my role in that situation to be. And so I think no matter what it is, it's just having the conversation. Again, we're taught not to talk about money. And then
Right.
that this is the person that we are choosing to do life with. And so we need to have this conversation around what are your expectations? What are their expectations? And finding a way to honor each other and to respect each other, also while taking responsibility.
Yes. So maybe somebody in that position, maybe the budget sheet that you mentioned that we can download, they both do their own potentially while having a conversation about what they
Yeah,
need as a team. Yeah.
I think it will be two separate ones
Yeah.
because each of you have your own income. And so
Right.
you'll have to just from that person's income decide how much of that is going to which bills, which debt payments, and what is the allocation bucket towards groceries, meals, vacation spending, like what are the dollar amounts going into each of those buckets based on that person's income.
And I think, this could even have, like, the whole love language conversation could come
I
into
I know,
play
I
here,
almost
right?
said it, yeah.
Because let's say that, I don't know, the way that somebody's showing their partner that they're thinking of them is that they're buying, like, a Starbucks or something every time they go out of the house, and they come home with a little treat for them, but that person would actually like them to just help with the dishes. I mean, you might be actually saving money if you have this conversation thinking, "Oh, I gotta bring a treat to this person all the time," but really maybe they actually want something else that does impact your budget together. So that could be an interesting
Yeah,
conversation too if you bring that in. Well, this was incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for dropping all the knowledge that you did today.
of course.
Is there anything else that you want to leave people with around this topic of budgeting? And then, of course, where people can find you and get your help and services as well?
I think we nailed the fact that it doesn't have to be so scary. Even if it feels messy and imperfect and not all that it's cracked up to be at first, like start making the attempts to look at the information, understand, even if the first budget is, like not that pretty and maybe
Yeah.
even useless. Like you did it for the first time. And instead of saying, oh, you never stick with a budget, like what did you learn?
Right.
And let's try it again and try it again and try it again because it will stick and it will become part of who you are. We can change our identity at any time. You can become a person who creates a budget, who is good with money. You have to take the responsibility to change that programming story. I am somebody who is good with money. I am somebody who creates and sticks to a budget and then live that identity so that you can prove that to yourself. Nobody's meant to do it alone. And so if you need somebody to celebrate with you, to be there when times aren't going well, our clients often say, you're the only person I talk to about this stuff.
I could
You
see
know?
that for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
makes
you can go to
sense.
kickstartaccountinginc.com, learn more about our services, talk to one of our team members there. Download the budget, kickstartaccountinginc.com/budget. Make sure everything is available. We'll have a business and personal budget uploaded there.
Thanks again to Danielle for sharing all of this insight today. I hope you've been able to pull, one action item for yourself or one consideration for how you can start to build more confidence around this topic. And also go check out that sheet that Danielle is gifting everyone as well. Hope you have a good rest of the day. Hope you're feeling like $1,000,000, if you will. I will see myself out now. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. So glad you tuned into Self-Helpless. If you felt supported by this or a past episode, here's how you can support the show. Feel free to share it with someone who may enjoy the variety of conversations we have here. You can also become a monthly or annual patron of the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless, where you can vote on topics, submit your own, or be a quiet supporter. 100% of Patreon and merch proceeds go directly to operating costs, keeping all episodes free, consistent, and available across platforms with minimal ads. If you want to show some extra love in, you can leave an Apple Podcast review or send an email to share how Self-Helpless has impacted you. All of this and more goods can be found at selfhelplesspodcast.com. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.